Hi, everyone. Well, we're in Romans chapter 7 today as we continue in our daily devotions. And as I read through this section, verses 1 through 13, I just thought, how did I end up with this section? It is one of the most complicated parts of Paul's letter to the Romans, but we're going to unpack it a little bit and try to help you understand it. And really, what Paul is talking about is legalism. He's talking about how the law, the Old Testament, the Old Covenant, and how we can so easily fall into legalism. And a definition for legalism is the belief that we can become holy and pleasing to God by a list of do's and don'ts. Based upon what we do, God is happy with us or mad at us. And legalism, that's the vein where legalism comes from. And so what often happens in Christianity is that we start setting these high standards and ideals for everyone, ourselves included, and we encourage people to live at this high standard that actually none of us can live into. And I've seen so many people abused emotionally and spiritually because of the pressure that we put on ourselves to live at this high level that actually none of us can achieve God's standard anyway. And yet we make people feel guilty and ashamed and condemned. And so what often happens is that people go into hiding. They put masks on, they pretend like everything's fine and nothing's going on in their lives. Or what I've often seen is people completely abandon their faith because of the legalism that exists in Christianity and religion in general. And so Paul, I think this was going on in the Roman church. And so he wants to talk about the purpose of the law. He wants to help them understand what it is and what it isn't, what it does and what it doesn't do, and what is the role of it in our lives. So let's look at verse 4. Therefore, my brothers and sisters, you also were put to death in relation to the law through the body of Christ, so that you may belong to another. You belong to him who was raised from the dead, in order that we may bear fruit for God. So what Paul's saying here is that we've died to the law. It doesn't have impact in our lives anymore. It's not something that we have to try to achieve. And then in verse 6, but now we have been released from the law. In the sense, we've been delivered from it, since we have died to what held us, so that we may serve in the newness of the Spirit and not in the old letter of the law. See, what Christ did for us is he delivered us from this feeling like we have to achieve such a high standard. But then Paul says something interesting in verse 7. He writes, what should we say then? Is the law sin? Absolutely not. On the contrary, listen, I would not have known sin if it were not for the law. For example, I would not have known what it is to covet if the law had not said, do not covet. So the law had a purpose in that it helped us to know that we actually do fall short, that we actually can't live up to the standard. Without the law, we actually wouldn't know that. Let me try to help you understand this a little bit. Any non-rule followers out there, yeah, you know who you are, right? You see a sign on a fence that says keep out, and what's the first thing you think about doing? Going in, right? So if you went in and the sign said keep out, what Paul's saying is that would be sin, because the sign said keep out, but you broke the rule. But what if there wasn't a sign on the fence and you went in? There was no sign that said keep out and you went in. Is that sin? Paul's saying no. No, the law, the keep out sign, that helped us to know that we broke the law when we crashed through the fence, right? See, the law reveals sin. Now, I'm a rule follower. I grew up that's just who I am. And that means rule followers, we tend to be more legalistic than most. I remember going to a football game with my oldest son, Chase, and he's not a rule follower. And we got tickets, and we were in the visitor section at the Portland Timbers Stadium, and so that was a bummer because we were with people that everybody was cheering for the other team, right? And so Chase saw that there was seats down below by the field in the timber section, and so he he said, let's go, Dad. And he went down there. And I tried, you guys, I tried so hard to go down there and not sit in the wrong seat. I tried so hard, and I sat there I'm always looking over my shoulder, wondering when the owner of that seat comes, what's going to happen. I'm breaking the law. I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle it. So you know what I did? I went back up to my seat by myself. And I told Chase, hey, you stay down here. This is a great seat. Well, my son's great. He came back up after halftime and sat with me the rest of the game. But I want to try to break this in my life, because trying to follow the law, it destroys us. It actually steals from us. I'm not saying that we should just be rule breakers, but there's a difference between following Jesus and following the law. One is based on grace, and the other one is based on rules. One is based on relationship, and the other is based on regulations. The closer we get to Jesus, the better able we are to discern what is right and what is wrong. The closer we get to Jesus, because he has a plan for our lives, and he wants us to flourish, and he knows what's good for us and not good for us. And so he wants to direct our steps and help us live into a good and prosperous and flourishing life. So that's my prayer for you today. Keep your eyes on Jesus, not so much on the law, and maybe cross through a fence later today.